The night Emma showed up at her father's door with bruises hidden under her sleeves, he didn't ask questions. He simply opened a locked drawer and said, "I've been waiting for this day for 3 years." The night Daniel Carter realized his daughter was lying to him, it wasn't because of what she said. It was because of what she didn't say. Emma used to fill silence. She used to talk about everything, her job, her friends, even the random barista who spelled her name wrong. But now, sitting across from him at the dinner table, she just nodded, smiled when she had to, kept her hands folded tightly in her lap, like she was holding something in. Or hiding something. "Work's good?" Daniel asked, keeping his tone light. Emma nodded. "Yeah, busy but good." That was it. No story. No details. Just good. Daniel leaned back slightly, studying her without making it obvious. He'd spent 40 years reading people. First as a contractor negotiating deals, then as a father learning the language of moods, of silence, of things unsaid. And right now, everything about Emma felt edited, like she was performing a version of herself. Across the table, Adrian Blake chuckled, swirling the wine in his glass like he owned the room. "She's being modest," Adrian said smoothly. "Emma's been doing incredible. Honestly, I don't know how she keeps up." His tone was warm, polished, perfect, too perfect. Emma gave a small smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. Daniel noticed that. He noticed everything. The way Adrian answered questions meant for Emma. The way Emma glanced at Adrian before speaking, as if checking for permission. The way her shoulders tensed every time Adrian's voice sharpened, even slightly. Most people wouldn't catch it. But Daniel wasn't most people. Emma used to love her job, Daniel said casually. She couldn't stop talking about it. Emma's fingers tightened around her fork. Adrian laughed. "People grow up, Daniel. Priorities change." There was something in the way he said it. Not rude. Not aggressive. Just final. Daniel nodded slowly, but inside, something shifted. He'd heard that tone before. Not in business. Not in negotiations. In control. Dinner continued, but Daniel barely tasted the food. His attention stayed locked on the small things, the invisible cracks no one else would see. Emma barely ate. She flinched, just slightly, when Adrian reached across the table too quickly. And when she stood up to clear the plates, Daniel caught it. A faint bruise along her wrist. Barely visible. Easy to miss. Easy to explain away. But Daniel didn't miss it. "Emma," he said gently, "what happened to your arm?" She froze for half a second. Then she smiled. "Oh, just clumsy me. I bumped into the counter this morning. Too fast. Too rehearsed." Adrian didn't even look up from his glass. Daniel held her gaze for a moment longer than comfortable. Emma looked away first. That told him everything. The rest of the evening passed like a script. Adrian charming. Emma quiet. Daniel watching. Waiting. When they finally left, Adrian shook Daniel's hand firmly. "Always good seeing you," he said with that same polished smile. Daniel returned the handshake, his grip steady. "Take care of her," he replied. Adrian's smile didn't change. "Of course I do." The door closed. Silence filled the house. Daniel stood there for a long moment, staring at the empty space where they had just been. Then he exhaled slowly. Something wasn't right. And it wasn't small. He walked back to the dining table, his eyes drifting to Emma's untouched plate. The food had barely been moved. That wasn't his daughter. Emma loved food. Always had. He sat down in his chair, the wood creaking softly beneath him, and replayed the entire evening in his head, frame by frame, word by word. The hesitation, the silence, the bruise, the control. Individually, they meant nothing. Together, they meant everything. Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He didn't call Emma. He didn't confront Adrian. He didn't do anything emotional. Instead, he opened a blank note and typed one line. Date, March 14th, first confirmed signs. He stared at the words for a second, then added more. Details, observations, exact phrases, tone shifts. He wrote it all down, not because he was certain, but because he trusted one thing more than anything else. His instincts. And his instincts were screaming. Daniel set the phone down, his jaw tightening slightly. "If I'm wrong," he muttered to himself, "this stays nothing." A pause. His eyes hardened. "But if I'm right?" He looked toward the door, the same door Emma had just walked through. "Then I'm not going to lose her." The house was quiet again. But something had changed. That night wasn't the moment Daniel acted. It was the moment he started preparing. And somewhere far away, without realizing it, Adrian Blake had just made his first mistake. The next morning, Daniel Carter didn't call his daughter. He didn't text her. He didn't show up at her house demanding answers. Because Daniel understood something most people didn't. If you move too early, you lose everything. Instead, he did what he had trained himself to do his entire life. He paid attention. At 6:30 a.m., Daniel sat at his kitchen table with a cup of black coffee, untouched. His phone lay beside him, screen still open to the notes from the night before. Emma avoids eye contact. Adrian interrupts her responses. Visible bruise on right wrist. Behavior: controlled, not relaxed. He read the list again. Then again. Not looking for confirmation. Looking for doubt. But there wasn't any. Daniel wasn't emotional about it. That was the dangerous part. He was calm. Too calm. Because in his world, calm didn't mean peace. It meant a problem had just become real. He stood up, grabbed his keys, and left the house. Not to confront. To observe. Emma and Adrian lived 20 minutes away in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Clean lawns, identical mailboxes, the kind of place where nothing ever seemed wrong. Daniel parked 2 streets over. Not in front of the house. Not where he could be seen. He turned off the engine and waited. 7:12 a.m. The front door opened. Adrian stepped out first, sharp suit, polished shoes, phone already pressed to his ear. He walked with confidence, like the world belonged to him. Emma followed a few seconds later. And that's when Daniel felt it. She wasn't walking beside her husband. She was walking behind him. Just slightly. Just enough. Most people wouldn't notice. But Daniel did. Adrian said something over his shoulder without turning around. Emma nodded quickly. Too quickly. They reached the car. Adrian got in first. Emma paused for half a second, just standing there. Frozen. Then she got in. The car pulled away. Daniel watched until it disappeared. Then he leaned back in his seat, exhaling slowly. Yeah, he murmured. That's not normal. He didn't follow them. He didn't need to. He had seen enough for one morning. Back home, Daniel didn't sit down right away. Instead, he walked straight to the garage. Most people use their garages for storage. Daniel used his for control. Tools lined the walls, organized, precise, every item in its place. Boxes labeled, shelves measured. Nothing random. He moved to the back corner, where an old metal cabinet stood against the wall. It looked ordinary and used. That was the point. Daniel opened it. Inside, empty shelves. For now, he stared at it for a long moment, then nodded to himself. This is where it starts. He went back inside, picked up his phone, and opened a new folder. Archive. He hesitated for half a second before typing the next line. Subject: Adrian Blake. Not Emma's husband. Not family. Just a name. Clean. Detached. Intentional. Daniel wasn't building a case yet. He was building a record. There's a difference. A case proves something. A record waits. He started small. Phone logs. Dates. Times. He wrote down when Emma used to call him, then compared it to now. Before Adrian, daily calls. Random check-ins. Long conversations. Now, silence. 3 days. 5 days. Sometimes a week. He logged it. Not emotionally. Just facts. Then he opened social media. Emma's page looked normal at first glance. Smiling photos. Dinner dates. Vacation shots. But Daniel zoomed in. Angles. Body language. Timing. In every photo, Adrian stood slightly forward. Centered. Emma leaned in, but not naturally. Posed. And in one picture, just one, Daniel noticed something else. Her smile didn't match her eyes. He saved the image. Added it to the folder. Hours passed without him realizing. By noon, the folder had grown. Notes. Screenshots. Observations. Still nothing explosive. Nothing dramatic. But patterns. Patterns were forming. That evening, Daniel sat back in his chair, staring at everything he had collected in just one day. To anyone else, it would look like paranoia. Overthinking. But Daniel knew better. Because control doesn't start with violence. It starts quietly. Slowly. So slow, you don't notice it until you're already trapped. His phone buzzed. A message from Emma. Hey Dad, sorry I've been busy. Everything's good. Love you, red heart, asterisk asterisk. Daniel stared at the screen. Read it twice. Then a third time. Same words. Same tone. Same distance. He typed a reply. Love you too. Call me when you can. He didn't ask questions. Didn't push. Didn't break the surface. Because now he understood the rules. If Emma was being controlled, Then anything he said, anything, could be seen. He placed the phone down slowly, eyes drifting back to the growing archive. This isn't about proving I'm right, he said quietly. It's about being ready when she finally needs me. A pause. His expression hardened, just slightly. Not anger. Not yet. Something colder. More focused. Because when that day comes, he closed the cabinet in the garage, the metal door echoing softly. I won't be guessing. The lock clicked into place. And without realizing it, Adrian Blake had just lost the advantage. 3 days later, Daniel Carter saw something he couldn't ignore. Not in person, not in a conversation, but in a moment most people would scroll past without a second thought. It was 9:47 p.m. Daniel sat alone in his living room, the TV playing quietly in the background. He wasn't really watching it. His attention was on his phone, scrolling, not mindlessly, but deliberately. Looking, waiting. That's when Emma's new photo appeared. A dinner shot, dim lighting, expensive restaurant, wine glasses catching the glow of candlelight. Emma and Adrian sat across from each other, smiling. Perfect. At least, that's what it looked like. Daniel tapped the image, zoomed in. Closer, closer. And then he saw it. Emma's hand was on the table. Adrian's hand was over it. At first glance, it looked affectionate. Protective, even. But Daniel didn't see affection. He saw pressure. Adrian's fingers weren't resting. They were gripping. Subtle. Controlled. Intentional. Emma's fingers were slightly curled inward, not relaxed. Not natural. Daniel leaned back slowly, his jaw tightening. Got you, he whispered. Not proof. Not yet. But something real. He saved the photo immediately, added it to the archive, then paused, because something else didn't sit right. He checked the timestamp. Posted 6 minutes ago, which meant they were still there. Daniel didn't think. He moved. 15 minutes later, he was outside the restaurant. He didn't go in right away. Instead, he stood across the street, watching through the glass windows, scanning. And then, he found them. Corner table. Exactly like the photo. Adrian leaning forward, talking. Emma nodding, smiling. But even from a distance, Daniel could see it. That same tension, that same restraint. He stepped inside. Calm, controlled, invisible. The host greeted him, but Daniel barely acknowledged it. I'm meeting someone, he said quietly. A lie, but an easy one. He didn't walk to their table, didn't interrupt. He chose a seat at the bar instead, angled just enough to keep them in view through the mirror behind the bottles. Years of instinct, positioning, observation. 10 minutes passed, then 15, and that's when it happened. Small, quick, easy to miss. But Daniel didn't miss it. Emma said something. He couldn't hear it, but he saw Adrian's reaction. The smile disappeared, not slowly, instantly, like a switch. Adrian leaned in, closer, too close. His lips moved, sharp, controlled, low. Emma's posture changed immediately. Her shoulders dropped, her eyes lowered. Submission, not agreement. Submission. Daniel's grip tightened around his glass, but he didn't move. Not yet. Then Adrian reached across the table. Fast. Too fast. He grabbed Emma's wrist. Same one Daniel had noticed days ago. Emma flinched. Barely, but enough. Adrian didn't let go immediately. He held it for a second longer than necessary. Long enough to send a message. Then, he smiled again. Like nothing happened. Daniel's stomach turned cold. There it was. Not suspicion. Not instinct. Confirmation. He didn't storm over. Didn't cause a scene. Didn't play the hero. Because heroes lose. Prepared men win. Daniel stood up slowly, placed cash on the counter, and walked out of the restaurant without being seen. His face was calm, but his mind, already moving, already building. Back in his car, he didn't start the engine right away. He just sat there, hands resting on the steering wheel, breathing steady. Then he pulled out his phone, opened the archive, and added a new entry. Date, March 17th. Physical control observed in public setting. Behavior, grip on wrist. Subject reacts with fear response. Conclusion, pattern escalating. He stopped typing, stared at the screen, then added one more line. This is not temporary. Daniel leaned his head back against the seat, closed his eyes for a moment, because now, everything had changed. This wasn't about being careful anymore. This wasn't about waiting to see if he was wrong. He wasn't wrong. This was about time, and time was running out. Daniel opened his eyes, turned the key. The engine rumbled to life. For 3 days, he said quietly, almost to himself. I hoped I was overthinking. A pause. His grip tightened slightly on the wheel. I'm not. The car pulled away from the curb, and for the first time, Daniel Carter wasn't just observing anymore. He was planning. And somewhere inside that restaurant, Adrian Blake had just crossed a line he didn't even know existed. Daniel Carter didn't sleep that night, not because he was afraid, but because his mind refused to slow down. He sat at his kitchen table long after midnight, the house completely silent, except for the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. In front of him, his phone. On the screen, the archive. What started as a few notes had already grown into something else. Something sharper. Something structured. Daniel wasn't just recording anymore. He was connecting. He scrolled through the entries again. March 14th, first signs. March 15th, behavioral patterns. March 17th, physical control observed. Individually, they were small. Together, they told a story. And Daniel knew stories. Because every system, every person, followed a pattern. And once you saw the pattern, you could predict the outcome. He stood up slowly and walked back into the garage. The metal cabinet waited in the corner. Still empty, but not for long. Daniel opened it again, this time with purpose. Then he turned, walked to a shelf, and grabbed a small locked box. Inside it, old tools, not for building, for recording. A compact voice recorder, a secondary phone, a small camera no bigger than a thumb drive. Things he hadn't touched in years. Things most people wouldn't even think to own. He placed them carefully inside the cabinet, one by one, like laying out pieces on a chessboard. This isn't about reacting, he murmured quietly. It's about being ready. Because Daniel understood something Adrian didn't. Control leaves traces, and traces can be captured. The next morning, Daniel made his first move. Not toward Adrian, toward Emma. He called her. It rang twice. 3 times. Then, hey Dad. Her voice was bright. Too bright. Forced brightness. Daniel recognized it instantly. Morning, Em, he said casually. You free later today? A pause. Not long, but enough. I think so. What? I was thinking lunch, Daniel replied. Just us. Another pause. Longer this time. Daniel could almost hear the calculation happening on the other end. Not if she wanted to go, but whether she was allowed. Yeah, she finally said. Yeah, that sounds nice. Nice. Not I'd love to. Not I miss you. Just nice. Daniel kept his tone light. Good. I'll pick you up at noon. Silence. A shift. Then, Adrian might. Daniel cut in gently, but firmly. Just you, Emma. Another pause. This one heavier. Then, okay. The call ended. Daniel lowered the phone slowly. His expression didn't change. But inside, everything just confirmed what he already knew. At exactly 11:58 a.m., Daniel pulled up outside Emma's house. Not early. Not late. Precise. He didn't honk. Didn't text. He waited. 2 minutes later, the front door opened. Emma stepped out. Alone. Daniel watched closely. Her movements were quick. Almost rushed. Like someone leaving without wanting to be seen. She got into the car, closed the door, and exhaled. A long breath. The kind you take when you finally step outside something heavy. Hey, she said softly. Daniel nodded. Hey, kid. He didn't drive right away. He looked at her. Really looked. The makeup was subtle. Careful. But it didn't fully hide the faint discoloration near her wrist. Same spot. Worse than before. Daniel didn't react. Didn't stare. Didn't ask. Because questions make people shut down. Safety makes them open up. He started the car. Pulled away. For the first few minutes, they drove in silence. Not awkward. Just quiet. Then Emma spoke. You didn't tell Adrian you were picking me up. It wasn't a question. Daniel kept his eyes on the road. No. Another pause. Then, he doesn't like surprises. Daniel almost smiled. Not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. Good, Daniel said calmly. Emma turned slightly. Good. Daniel nodded. Means I did the right thing. Silence again. But this time, it felt different. Emma looked out the window, her fingers fidgeting in her lap, like she wanted to say something, but didn't know how. Daniel didn't push, didn't rush it. He just drove. Steady. Calm, present, because he knew this moment mattered, more than anything he'd written, more than anything he'd recorded. This was the opening. And then, finally, Emma spoke again. Quiet. Almost a whisper. Dad. Daniel didn't look at her, but his grip on the wheels softened slightly. Do you ever feel like? She hesitated. Searching. Struggling. Like you can't tell what's normal anymore? There it was. Daniel didn't answer right away. He let the silence sit. Let her words exist. Then he said, gently, yeah. Emma turned toward him. Eyes searching. Daniel kept his voice steady. But that usually means something isn't. Her breathing changed. Just slightly. And for the first time, the wall cracked. Just a little. Daniel didn't need more. Not yet. Because now he knew something even more important than evidence. Emma wasn't blind anymore. She was starting to question. And once that starts, everything begins to fall apart. Daniel's eyes stayed on the road, but his mind was already 10 steps ahead. Because now, he wasn't just preparing alone. Emma was beginning to wake up, and Adrian Blake was about to lose control. Daniel chose a quiet place for lunch. Not Emma's favorite cafe. Not anywhere crowded. Somewhere neutral. Somewhere safe. The diner sat on the edge of town, half empty, sunlight spilling through wide windows. The kind of place where no one paid attention to anyone else. Perfect. They slid into a booth across from each other. Emma kept her purse close to her side, close enough to reach quickly. Daniel noticed. He noticed everything. A waitress came by, took their orders, then left them alone. Silence settled in. Not uncomfortable, but heavy. Emma picked at the edge of her napkin, folding it, unfolding it, again and again. Daniel didn't interrupt, didn't rush her. He simply sat there, present, steady, unshaken. Because he knew something important. If she felt pushed, she'd shut down. If she felt safe, she might speak. You look tired, Daniel said gently. Not accusing, not probing, just observing. Emma let out a small breath. Yeah, she admitted. A crack. Small, but real. Work? Daniel asked. Emma hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, work. Daniel didn't challenge it. Didn't say I know that's not true. Because this wasn't about catching her in a lie. It was about letting her step out of it. The food arrived. They both thanked the waitress. Neither of them touched their plates right away. Emma stared down at hers. Then suddenly, Adrian says I overreact. The words came out quietly, like she wasn't even sure she meant to say them. Daniel stayed still. Didn't react too fast. Didn't lean in. About what? He asked calmly. Emma swallowed. Her fingers tightened slightly around her fork. Things, she said. A beat. Then, little things. Daniel nodded slowly. Like what? Emma let out a shaky breath. Her eyes stayed on the table. Like, if I forget something. Or if I say something wrong. Or if she trailed off. Her voice got smaller. If I make him upset. Daniel felt something cold settle in his chest. Not anger. Not yet. Something deeper. And what happens, he asked carefully, when he gets upset? Emma froze. Not physically, but inside. Her fork stopped moving. Her shoulders tensed. Nothing, she said quickly. Too quickly. Daniel didn't respond. Didn't push. Silence. Then, Emma shook her head slightly, like she was arguing with herself. It's not like that, she added. He cares a lot. He wants things to be right. Daniel nodded once. Let her say it. Because this part mattered. That must be exhausting, he said quietly. Emma blinked. Looked up at him. What? Daniel met her eyes for the first time since they sat down. Not intense. Not confrontational. Just steady. Trying to make sure everything is always right, he said. That's a lot to carry. Emma stared at him. Something shifted behind her eyes. She started, then stopped. Her voice trembled. I don't want to make things worse. There it was. Daniel leaned back slightly. Gave her space. You're not responsible for someone else's reactions, he said calmly. Emma's expression tightened. Conflicted. That's not what Adrian says. Daniel almost smiled. Not because it was funny. Because it was predictable. Yeah, he said softly. I figured. Emma looked down again. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He says if I didn't push him, he wouldn't get like that. Daniel's jaw tightened. Just slightly. But his voice stayed calm. Controlled. Emma, he said. Look at me. She hesitated. Then slowly looked up. And for the first time, he saw it clearly. Not just fear. Not just confusion. Doubt. Has he ever made you feel scared? Daniel asked. Emma didn't answer. Not right away. Her eyes flickered. her breathing shallow. Then, just barely, she nodded. Daniel didn't move, didn't react, didn't say I knew it. Because this moment wasn't about him being right. It was about her telling the truth. And once that happens, you don't break it. He doesn't mean to, Emma said quickly. He just loses control sometimes. Daniel held her gaze. Control doesn't get lost, he said quietly. It gets used. Emma's eyes widened slightly. Silence fell between them again. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It was real. Emma looked down at her hands, at the faint bruise on her wrist. He always says he's sorry after, she whispered. Daniel nodded once. I believe that, he said. Emma looked up, surprised. You do? Daniel's expression didn't change. Yeah, he said. I believe he's sorry. A beat. But that doesn't mean it won't happen again. Emma's breathing hitched. Because deep down, she already knew that. The truth didn't hit her like a shock. It settled. Slow. Heavy. Unavoidable. Daniel reached for his coffee, took a slow sip, gave her space to feel it. Because this wasn't the moment to rescue her. This was the moment she started seeing it herself. And once she sees it, she can't unsee it. Emma sat there quietly, her world shifting piece by piece. And Daniel? He didn't push, didn't rush, didn't try to fix everything in one conversation. Because he knew something Adrian didn't. You don't break control in one moment. You break it by making the truth impossible to ignore. And right now, that process had just begun. When Daniel dropped Emma back home, he didn't say anything dramatic. No warnings. No ultimatums. No asterisk, you need to leave him. Asterisk, because he knew better. You don't pull someone out of a fire while they still believe it's warm. Text me when you get inside, Daniel said casually as she reached for the door. Emma nodded. Okay. A pause. Then, thanks for lunch. Her voice was softer now, less guarded. Daniel gave a small nod. Anytime. She stepped out of the car, closed the door, and walked toward the house. Not rushed this time. Not as tense. But still, careful. Daniel waited. Didn't drive off. Didn't look away. Emma reached the door, opened it, stepped inside. 10 seconds later, Daniel's phone buzzed. I'm in. He exhaled slowly, then drove away. But something didn't sit right. It wasn't what Emma said. It was what she didn't. That night, Daniel sat in his garage again. The cabinet open, the archive growing. He added new entries. March 20th, lunch conversation. Subject acknowledges fear. Psychological dependency present. He paused, then added another line. Subject still defends aggressor. Daniel stared at that sentence for a long time, because that was the hardest part. Not the abuse, not the manipulation, the loyalty. He closed the cabinet slowly, locked it. And just as he turned to leave, his phone rang. Emma. Daniel answered immediately. Hey. Silence. Then, Dad. Her voice was different. Tight. Shaking. Daniel didn't speak. He listened. He's upset. Daniel's body went still. What happened? He asked calmly. I told him I had lunch with you, Emma said quickly. Just casually. I didn't think it would. Her voice broke. Daniel closed his eyes for a brief second. Where are you right now? He asked. In the bedroom, she whispered. Is he there with you? No, he's downstairs. A pause. Then, I think he's been drinking. Daniel's grip tightened around the phone. Emma, he said quietly. Listen to me carefully. Footsteps. Faint. In the background. Emma's breathing quickened. He's coming up, she whispered. Daniel stood up instantly. Put me on speaker, he said. No, if he hears. Emma. His voice was firm now. Not loud, but unmovable. Put me on speaker. A second of hesitation. Then, a click. The door opened. Daniel could hear it. Clear. Sharp. Adrian's voice followed. Low. Controlled. Who are you talking to? Emma didn't answer. Emma. This time. Harder. My dad, she said quietly. Silence. Then, a slow exhale. Give me the phone. Daniel stepped into the center of the garage. Still. Focused. Emma. Adrian said again, calmer now. Give me the phone. A pause. Then, a shift in sound. And suddenly, Adrian was on the line. Daniel, Adrian said smoothly. Too smoothly. Daniel didn't respond right away. I was wondering when you'd start interfering, Adrian continued. Polite, measured, but underneath, something darker. I'm not interfering, Daniel said calmly. I'm talking to my daughter. A small chuckle. Your daughter, Adrian repeated, as if she's not my wife. Daniel's voice didn't change. She's still my daughter. Silence. Tension. Then Adrian spoke again. You know, he said slowly, Emma gets confused sometimes. Daniel's eyes hardened slightly. Confused how? She exaggerates things, Adrian replied. Gets emotional. Misinterprets situations. A beat. I'm just trying to keep things stable. Daniel almost smiled. There it was. Control. Reframed as care. Then you won't mind if she talks to me, Daniel said evenly. Another pause. Longer this time. Then, a shift. Subtle, but real. Adrian's tone changed. Just slightly. I think, he said carefully, it would be better if you gave us some space. Daniel stepped forward. Just one step. No, he said. Simple. Final. Silence. For the first time, Adrian didn't respond immediately. And in that silence, Daniel felt it. A crack. Not in Emma. In Adrian. Because control only works when no one challenges it. And Daniel just did. Emma, Daniel said clearly. Are you okay? A breath. Shaky. Yes. It wasn't fully true, but it wasn't fully false either. It was enough. Daniel nodded slightly to himself. I'll call you tomorrow, he said. Adrian didn't stop him, didn't interrupt. Because now, the dynamic had changed. Good night, Emma. Good night, Dad. The call ended. The garage fell silent again. Daniel lowered the phone slowly. And for the first time, he knew something for certain. This wasn't just happening behind closed doors anymore. Adrian knew. And that meant one thing. Things were about to escalate. Daniel turned back toward the cabinet, unlocked it. And this time, when he added a new entry, his handwriting didn't hesitate. March 20th, direct confrontation. Subject aware of external observation. Risk level increasing. He closed the notebook. Eyes steady, mind sharp. All right, he said quietly. No fear, no doubt. Now we begin. The next morning, Daniel Carter didn't wait for Emma to call. Because now, waiting wasn't strategy anymore. It was risk. At 8:02 a.m., he was already parked 2 blocks away from her house. Same position, same angle. But this time, he wasn't just observing behavior. He was watching for change. Because once a controlling man feels threatened, he adapts. The front door opened at 8:17. Adrian stepped out first. But something was different. He wasn't on the phone. He wasn't relaxed. He scanned the street. Left, right, slow, deliberate. Daniel didn't move, didn't even blink. Adrian's eyes lingered just a second longer than normal, like he was checking for something, or someone. Then Emma stepped out behind him, and Daniel felt it immediately. She wasn't just quiet this time. She was smaller. Her shoulders were tighter, her movements more controlled, and when Adrian reached for her, she flinched. Not subtly, not barely. Clearly. Adrian noticed it. Daniel saw his jaw tighten, just for a fraction of a second. Then, he smiled. But it wasn't the same smile as before. This one didn't hide anything. This one warned. They got into the car, drove off. Daniel stayed still for another 10 seconds, then reached for his phone. New entry. March 21st, behavioral escalation. Subject, Emma, displays heightened fear response. Aggressor aware, increased surveillance behavior. He stopped typing, then added one more line. Window closing. Daniel stared at those words, because he knew what they meant. Time was running out. That afternoon, Emma didn't text. No, I'm okay. No check-in. Nothing. Daniel didn't call. Not yet. Because silence was also information. At 6:14 p.m., his phone buzzed. A message. Not from Emma. From Adrian. We need to set some boundaries. Daniel read it once. Then again. No greeting. No explanation. Just control, reaching outward now. Daniel didn't reply immediately. He set the phone down, walked to the sink, ran the water, let the silence stretch. Because responding too fast gives power. After a full minute, he picked up the phone again, typed calmly. You don't set boundaries for my relationship with my daughter. Sent. 3 dots appeared instantly, then disappeared. then appeared again. Finally, a reply. You're making things worse for her. Daniel's expression didn't change. Another message came. She was doing fine before you got involved. Daniel exhaled slowly. There it was. The rewrite. Make the victim question reality. Blame the outsider. Reframe control as stability. Textbook. Daniel typed again. If she was fine, she wouldn't be scared. This time, no typing dots. Just silence. Daniel set the phone down again. But inside, everything sharpened. Because Adrian had just done something important. He stepped out of the shadows. Which meant, he felt pressure. And pressure makes people make mistakes. That night, Daniel couldn't shake a feeling. Not fear. Not anxiety. Instinct. Something was coming. At 9:32 p.m., it did. His phone rang. Emma. Daniel answered immediately. Emma. Silence. Then, breathing. Fast. Uneven. Dad. Her voice was barely there. I think I messed up. Daniel stood up instantly. What happened? I told him, she whispered, that I wanted space. Daniel's chest tightened. And, he asked carefully. Silence. Then, he didn't like that. A loud sound in the background. Something hitting something. Emma gasped. Daniel's voice dropped. Low. Controlled. Where are you? In the bathroom, she said quickly. I locked the door. Daniel was already grabbing his keys. Stay there, he said. Do not open that door. Footsteps. Closer. Then, a knock. Hard. Emma. Adrian's voice. Right outside. Calm. Too calm. Open the door. Emma didn't move. Daniel reached his car. Emma, listen to me, he said firmly. Stay on the phone. Another knock. Louder. Emma. Silence. Then, a sudden bang. Emma screamed. Daniel's engine roared to life. I'm coming, he said. And for the first time, there was no more waiting, no more observing, no more preparing. This was the moment everything crossed the line. And Daniel Carter was done watching. Daniel Carter broke every rule he had set for himself. He sped. The engine roared as his truck tore through the quiet streets, headlights cutting through the dark. His hands were steady on the wheel, but everything else inside him had shifted. This wasn't preparation anymore. This was intervention. Emma, he said into the phone, voice low but firm. I need you to listen to me. On the other end, ragged breathing. A muffled sob. I locked it, she whispered. He's trying to get in. Another bang. Louder this time. Wood splintering. Emma. Adrian's voice again. Still controlled. Still calm. You're overreacting. Daniel's jaw tightened. Stay away from the door, Daniel said. Is there a window? A pause. Then, yes. Can you open it? More noise. The sound of something heavy hitting the door again. I think so. Daniel pushed the gas harder. A red light. He didn't stop. Good, he said. I want you to open it quietly. Don't let him hear. A crack. The faint sound of a window sliding up. Cold air rushing through. Okay. Can you climb out? Silence. It's high. Daniel's eyes flicked to the clock. 9:36 p.m. Too far. Not fast enough. You don't have to jump yet, he said quickly. Just be ready. Another crash. This time, the door frame cracking. Emma cried out. Emma. Adrian again. Closer now. You're making this worse. Daniel's grip tightened on the wheel. Listen to me, he said, voice sharper now. If that door breaks, you go out the window. Do you understand? Yes. Don't think. Just move. The sound of wood splitting. Then, a loud crack. The door gave. Emma screamed. Daniel slammed the brakes as he turned into her street. I'm outside, he said. Not yet, but close enough. Go. Now. Footsteps. Fast. Panic. Then, a rush of wind. A thud. A cry of pain. Silence. Emma. I'm okay, she gasped. I jumped. Daniel's truck screeched to a stop in front of the house. The front door was open. Lights on. Shadows moving inside. Stay where you are, he said. I see you. She was on the side of the house, near the bushes. Curled slightly. Shaking. Daniel jumped out of the truck and ran to her. Hey. He dropped to his knees beside her. I'm here. Emma looked up at him, eyes wide, terrified. And then, she broke. She threw her arms around him, gripping him like she was drowning. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I'm sorry, I didn't know, I didn't." Daniel held her tightly, one hand steady on her back. "It's okay," he said quietly. "You're okay." But his eyes were already on the house. Because inside, Adrian had just realized something. Control was gone. The front door slammed open. Adrian stepped out. No smile this time. No mask. Just anger. Cold. Focused. "Emma." Daniel stood up slowly, positioning himself between them. Adrian stopped a few feet away, eyes locked. "You're leaving?" Adrian asked. His tone wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Emma didn't answer. She stayed behind Daniel. That told Adrian everything. His gaze shifted. To Daniel. "This is what you wanted," Adrian said. Daniel didn't respond. "You think you're helping her?" Adrian continued. A step forward. "You're destroying her life." Daniel's voice came out calm, unshaken. "No," he said. "You already did that." Silence. Tension thick in the air. Then, Adrian laughed. Short. Sharp. "You have no idea what you're doing," he said. Daniel held his ground. "I know exactly what I'm doing." Another step forward from Adrian. But this time, he stopped himself. Because something had changed. Emma wasn't alone anymore. And Daniel wasn't backing down. Adrian's eyes flicked between them, calculating, reassessing. Then, he stepped back. Not defeated. Not yet. But aware. "This isn't over," he said quietly. Daniel didn't blink. "It is for tonight." A long pause. Then Adrian turned, walked back into the house, doors slamming behind him. Silence returned. Emma's grip tightened on Daniel's arm. "He's going to come after me," she whispered. Daniel looked down at her, his expression steady, certain. "No," he said. "A beat. Now he comes through me." Emma stared at him, still shaking, still scared. But for the first time, not alone. Daniel helped her into the truck, closed the door gently, then walked around to the driver's side, paused for just a second, looking at the house, memorizing it. Because this was no longer just a situation. It was a war. And Adrian Blake had just made the biggest mistake of his life. Emma didn't stop shaking until they were miles away. Daniel didn't ask questions right away, didn't push, didn't try to make sense of everything in the first 5 minutes. Because right now, this wasn't about understanding. It was about safety. He drove straight to his house. No detours. No stops. Emma sat in the passenger seat, curled slightly inward, arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold something together that had already broken. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was heavy. Every few seconds, she glanced at the side mirror, then at the road behind them, then again. Daniel noticed. "He's not following us," he said calmly. Emma nodded, but didn't stop checking. Because fear doesn't listen to logic. When they pulled into the driveway, Daniel didn't turn off the engine immediately. He looked at her, really looked. Her hair was messy, her breathing still uneven. And now, without the distance, without the dim light, he could see it clearly. Not just the wrist. There were more. Faint marks along her arm, barely visible, but real. Daniel's jaw tightened, just for a second. Then he opened the door. "Come on," he said gently. Inside, the house felt different. Warmer, quieter, safer. Emma stepped in slowly, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to feel that yet. Daniel locked the door behind them, then checked it again, not out of fear, out of habit. "Sit," he said, gesturing toward the couch. Emma sat down, carefully, like even that required effort. Daniel disappeared into the kitchen, returned a minute later with a glass of water and a small first aid kit. He set them down in front of her. "Let me see your arm." Emma hesitated, then slowly rolled up her sleeve. Daniel didn't react, not outwardly. But inside, something settled. Not anger, not rage. Something colder. Certainty. He cleaned the bruises gently. No rush. No unnecessary words. Emma watched him, quiet. "You knew," she said suddenly. Daniel paused. "Knew what?" That something was wrong. He didn't answer immediately. Then, "I suspected." Emma let out a small, shaky laugh. "I thought I was hiding it." Daniel looked at her. "You were trying to survive it," he said. That hit differently. Emma's eyes filled. I kept telling myself it wasn't that bad, she whispered. That it would stop. Daniel nodded once. That's how it works. Silence. Then, Emma looked at him again. What do we do now? There it was. Not denial. Not defense. A question. Daniel closed the first aid kit slowly, set it aside, then stood up. Come with me. Emma frowned slightly. Where? You'll see. He walked toward the garage. Emma followed. The light flicked on. The metal cabinet stood in the corner. Quiet. Unassuming. Daniel walked up to it, unlocked it, and opened the door. Emma stepped closer. Inside. Folders. Devices. Notes. Organized. Detailed. Prepared. She stared. Confused. What is this? Daniel didn't look at her. This, he said calmly, is everything. Emma stepped closer, picked up a folder, opened it. Dates. Entries. Photos. Her hands started to shake again. How long? She asked. Daniel finally looked at her. 3 years. Emma froze. 3 years. Daniel nodded. I didn't know when you'd need it, he said, but I knew one day you might. Emma flipped through more pages. Screenshots. Logs. Patterns. Everything she thought she imagined. Written down. Confirmed. Real. You were watching this whole time? She whispered. Daniel shook his head slightly. I was preparing. A long silence filled the garage. Emma closed the folder slowly. Tears rolled down her face. I thought I was alone, she said. Daniel stepped closer. You weren't. She looked up at him. But why didn't you say anything? Daniel didn't hesitate. Because if I was wrong, I would have destroyed your life. A beat. And if I was right. His voice hardened slightly. I needed to be ready. Emma stared at him, seeing him differently now. Not distant. Not passive. Strategic. Protective. He was going to kill me, she whispered. Daniel's eyes didn't flinch. I know. Silence. Then, Emma took a shaky breath. What do we do now? Daniel reached into the cabinet, pulled out a thick folder. Labeled, Adrian Blake. He handed it to her. We finished this. Emma held the folder, still shaking. But something had changed. The fear was still there. But now, it had something next to it. Clarity. Daniel closed the cabinet behind them. And this time, when the lock clicked, it didn't sound like preparation. It sounded like the beginning of the end. Daniel didn't call the police that night. Not immediately. Because rushing in without a plan was exactly how people lost cases like this. Instead, he sat across from Emma at the kitchen table, the folder between them. Thick. Heavy. Emma hadn't stopped flipping through it. Page after page. Every detail. Every note. Every moment she thought she imagined. Written down in black and white. This is everything, she whispered. Daniel nodded. Not everything, he said. Everything I could prove. Emma looked up, eyes red, but different now. More awake. What does that mean? She asked. Daniel leaned forward slightly. It means feelings aren't enough, he said. Fear isn't enough. Even truth isn't enough. A beat. You need evidence people can't argue with. Emma swallowed. And this is that. Daniel didn't answer right away. It's a start. Silence. Emma closed the folder slowly. So what happens now? She asked. Daniel stood up, walked to the counter, grabbed his phone. Now, he said calmly, we make it official. He dialed a number. Emma watched him, tense, waiting. The call connected. Yeah, Daniel said, voice steady. It's me. A pause. I need you to come in tomorrow morning. Another pause. No, he added. It's not business. A beat. It's worse. He ended the call. Emma frowned. Who was that? Daniel set the phone down. An attorney. Emma's stomach dropped. Are we suing him? Daniel shook his head. No. A pause. We're building a case. Emma felt the weight of those words. Not emotional. Not reactive. Deliberate. Criminal? She asked quietly. Daniel met her eyes. Yes. Silence filled the room. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about leaving. This was about consequences. Real ones. Emma's hands tightened slightly. He's going to come after me, she said. Daniel didn't hesitate. He already did. That landed. Hard. Emma looked down, processing. Then, what if no one believes me? Daniel's expression didn't change. They don't have to believe you. A beat. They just have to see the evidence. Emma glanced at the folder again. And if it's not enough? Daniel's voice lowered slightly. Then we make it enough. Not aggressive. Not reckless. Prepared. The next morning came fast. Daniel didn't sleep much. Emma didn't sleep at all. At 8 a.m., they were already sitting in a quiet office across from a man in his late 50s. Sharp suit. Sharp eyes. Daniel Carter, the man said, leaning back slightly. I haven't seen you in years. Daniel nodded. Leonard Hayes, he replied. Emma glanced between them. You two know each other? Leonard gave a small smile. Your father wired my first office, he said. Didn't trust anyone else to do it right. Daniel didn't smile. Still don't. Leonard's expression shifted. He looked at the folder on the table. So, he said, what are we dealing with? Daniel slid the folder forward. Start there. Leonard opened it. Silence filled the room as he read, page after page. His expression didn't change much, but his eyes sharpened. After 10 minutes, he closed it. Well, he said slowly, this isn't small. Emma leaned forward slightly. What does that mean? Leonard looked at her directly. It means, he said, if even half of this holds up. A pause. Your husband isn't just abusive. Another pause. He's criminal. Emma's chest tightened. Daniel didn't react. Because he already knew. What do we need? Daniel asked. Leonard tapped the folder. More of this, he said. Clear timelines. Corroboration. Anything that shows intent. Emma frowned. Intent. Leonard nodded. Abuse is one thing, he explained. But if we can prove planning, control, financial manipulation, a beat, then this becomes a much bigger case. Daniel's eyes narrowed slightly. Financial? Leonard leaned forward. Men like this don't just control people, he said. They control money. Emma froze. Because suddenly, pieces started connecting. Insurance policies, joint accounts, documents she never questioned. He's been handling everything, she whispered. Daniel looked at her. What kind of everything? Emma's voice shook slightly. Our account's my inheritance. He said it was easier if he managed it. Leonard sat back slowly. There it is. Silence. Heavy. Real. Daniel's jaw tightened. This isn't just about control, he said. Leonard nodded. No, he replied. This is about motive. Emma's heart started racing. Motive for what? Leonard didn't answer right away. He looked at Daniel, then back at Emma. And when he spoke, his voice was calm, but serious. For something worse than you think. The room went still. Because in that moment, everything shifted again. This wasn't just about escaping Adrian. This was about uncovering what he was really planning. And Daniel Carter realized something chilling. They weren't ahead. They were just finally catching up. Daniel didn't say a word on the drive home. Not because there was nothing to say, but because everything had already been said. Emma sat beside him, staring straight ahead. Her hands rested in her lap, but they weren't still. Her fingers kept tightening, releasing, tightening again. Financial control. She whispered the words like she was testing them. Daniel kept his eyes on the road. Think, he said quietly. Everything he's touched. Emma swallowed. The accounts, the insurance. Her voice trailed off. Daniel glanced at her briefly. What insurance? Emma hesitated. Then, life insurance, she said. Silence. Daniel didn't react immediately. How much? He asked. Emma's voice dropped. 2 policies. A beat. One through his company. Another beat. And one private. Daniel's grip on the wheel tightened. Total. Emma looked down. Almost $1 million. The air inside the truck shifted. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just cold. Daniel exhaled slowly. And when did that start? Emma's mind raced, trying to remember. About a year ago, she said. He said it was for security. For our future. Daniel nodded once. Who suggested it? Emma didn't answer right away. Then, he did. Daniel didn't speak again. Because now, the picture was complete. That night, the kitchen table became something else. Not a place to eat. A place to map. Folders spread out. Documents stacked. Phones open. Emma sat across from Daniel. But she wasn't the same person who sat there the night before. She wasn't confused anymore. She was remembering. He didn't let me see the paperwork, she said. He just told me where to sign. Daniel wrote it down. Anything else? He asked. Emma nodded slowly. He moved money too, she added. From my account, into something he called investments. Daniel's pen stopped. What kind of investments? Emma shook her head. I don't know. He said I wouldn't understand. Daniel resumed writing. Of course he did. Control, isolation, dependency. Every piece fit. But there was one question left. When was the last time he changed anything? Daniel asked. Emma thought. Hard. Then, last week. Daniel looked up. What did he change? Emma's voice dropped. He increased the policy. Silence. Heavy. Daniel didn't need to ask the next question. Because he already knew. Emma, he said quietly. Look at me. She did. Last night. A pause. When you said he didn't like you asking for space. Another pause. What exactly did he say? Emma's breathing slowed. Like she was replaying it. He said, her voice trembled, that I was becoming a problem. Daniel's eyes hardened. And then, Emma hesitated, then whispered. He said problems get handled. The room went completely still. Because that wasn't anger. That wasn't emotion. That was intention. Daniel stood up slowly, walked to the counter, picked up his phone. Emma watched him. What are you doing? Daniel didn't look back. Moving faster. He dialed Leonard. The call connected immediately. Tell me you didn't wait, Leonard said. I didn't, Daniel replied. A pause. We have insurance, Daniel continued. Recent increase. Financial control. Possible asset movement. Silence on the other end. Then, that's enough. Daniel's expression didn't change. For what? Emma asked quietly. Daniel looked at her. For them to listen. 2 hours later, they weren't alone anymore. 2 officers sat in Daniel's living room. Calm. Professional. Listening. Emma's voice shook at first. But then, it steadied. Because now, she wasn't guessing. She had proof. She had details. She had a timeline. And for the first time, she had control of her own story. Daniel didn't interrupt. Didn't lead. He let her speak. Because this part had to come from her. When she finished, the room was quiet. One of the officers leaned forward. Miss Carter, he said, based on what you've shown us. A pause. We're going to need to act quickly. Emma's heart started racing again. What does that mean? The officer exchanged a glance with his partner, then looked back at her. It means, he said, if your husband is planning something. A beat. We don't wait for it to happen. Daniel nodded once. Exactly. Later that night, after the officers left, Emma sat alone on the couch. The house was quiet again, but not the same kind of quiet. This one felt like the moment before something breaks, or something ends. Daniel stood by the window, looking out into the dark. He doesn't know yet, Emma said softly. Daniel didn't turn. He will. A pause. Is he going to come here? She asked. Daniel's voice stayed calm. No. Emma frowned. How do you know? Daniel finally looked at her. And for the first time, there was no hesitation in his answer. Because now, a beat. He's not hunting you anymore. Emma's breath caught slightly. Then what is he doing? Daniel's eyes didn't waver. Running. Silence. Because deep down, they both knew. The moment control breaks, the truth follows. And when the truth comes out, people like Adrian don't fight it. They try to escape it. Daniel turned back to the window. Watching. Waiting. Because now, everything was in motion. And somewhere out there, Adrian Blake had just realized something terrifying. The game he thought he was controlling was already over. The arrest didn't happen the way Emma expected. No sirens in the night. No dramatic knock on the door. It happened quietly. 2 days later, Daniel and Emma were sitting in the living room when the call came. Daniel answered, listened, didn't interrupt. Then he said one word. Where? A pause. I'll be there. He hung up. Emma's heart started racing. What happened? Daniel looked at her. They got him. Everything inside her froze. Where? Airport. A beat. He was leaving. The drive there felt unreal. Emma stared out the window, watching the world move like nothing had changed. Cars, people, lights. But everything had changed. Because for the first time, Adrian wasn't in control of anything. When they arrived, the scene was already contained. No chaos, no crowd, just a quiet corner of the terminal. 2 officers, a few federal agents, and Adrian. He wasn't fighting, wasn't shouting. He was sitting, hands cuffed, face pale. For a moment, Emma didn't recognize him. Not because he looked different, but because the illusion was gone. No confidence, no charm, no control. Just a man. Caught. Daniel stayed a step behind her. Didn't guide her. Didn't stop her. Emma walked forward slowly. Adrian looked up. Their eyes met. And for the first time, he didn't smile. "Emma," he said. His voice was softer, almost pleading. "You don't understand," he added quickly. "This isn't what it looks like." Emma didn't respond. Because she had heard that before. Too many times. "You're making a mistake," Adrian continued. "They're twisting things. I was protecting us." Emma's hands trembled slightly. But her voice didn't. "No," she said. Simple. Clear. "You were controlling me." Adrian's expression cracked. Just slightly. "That's not true," he said quickly. Emma took a small step closer. "You made me feel like everything was my fault," she continued. "You made me question what was real." A pause. "And you almost convinced me." Silence. Adrian's eyes shifted. Searching. Calculating. But there was nothing left to control. "You needed me," he said. Emma shook her head. "No," she replied. "A beat. I just thought I did. That was it. Not anger. Not revenge. Clarity. And clarity ends everything." The agents stepped forward. "It's time," one of them said. Adrian looked at Emma one last time. But whatever he was about to say didn't matter anymore. Because she had already stopped listening. They led him away. No struggle. No drama. Just footsteps. Fading. Emma stood there for a long moment, watching until he disappeared. Then, her shoulders dropped. Not in fear. In release. Daniel stepped beside her. "You okay?" he asked. Emma nodded slowly. "Yeah." A tear rolled down her cheek. But she smiled. A real smile. For the first time in a long time. Months passed. The case moved forward. Evidence held. More came out. Financial fraud. Insurance manipulation. Intent. Everything Daniel had suspected. Proved. Adrian didn't walk free again. Emma rebuilt slowly. Not all at once. Not perfectly. But honestly. She moved into a small apartment. Started working again. Started living again. And Daniel stopped watching. Because he didn't need to anymore. One evening, Emma sat across from him again. Same table. Same house. But everything was different. She laughed. Talked. Filled the silence again. Like she used to. And beside her sat someone new. Ethan Brooks. Not flashy. Not controlling. Just present. The kind of man who listened. Who waited. Who didn't need to dominate a room to feel important. Daniel watched quietly. Not suspicious. Just aware. And for the first time, he didn't feel the need to prepare. Later that night, after Emma left, Daniel walked into the garage. The cabinet was still there. He opened it. Looked at the folders. The notes. The years of quiet preparation. Then slowly, he closed it. Locked it. And this time, he didn't look back. Because the job wasn't to control her life. It was to protect it. Until she could take it back. And she had. Daniel turned off the light. Walked back inside. The house felt different now. Not quiet. Peaceful. And somewhere, far behind them, a story had ended. Not with revenge. But with truth. And the kind of love that doesn't need to be loud to save someone's life. So here's the question. If you saw the signs early, would you wait like Daniel? Or act immediately and risk losing everything?